Welcome back to Andi and Mich, the podcast where two sisters, two generations, and way too many feelings come together to talk about life, love, and the absolute madness of modern reality TV.
And today we are taking you straight to the villa. That's right, Love Island USA Season 7. And let's just say there was so much tongue, not enough emotional depth, or mouthwash for that matter.
We're talking about everything from the performative romance and kiss counting chaos to the friendship politics, bro code loyalty, and when girl code turns into low key bullying.
Plus, we've got thoughts on cultural bias, tribe behavior, and why some contestants get overlooked no matter how real they actually are.
So grab your cafecito or your iced green tea and let's dive in. Love Island, Season 7. First of all, why is it 1,000 episodes?
It was longer than Lord of the Rings.
It was so long. That's 36 hours. I mean, I get they're recording 24/7, but is that necessary? Do I have to give up a quarter of my life to watch this show? Number 2, can we talk about how everyone was making out? The amount of spit swapping that happens right out the gate just blew my mind.
It definitely set the tone for what was in store, but even that didn't prepare me. The other part of that is where was the mouthwash? I hope somebody's sole responsibility is to give them mouthwash.
Also, do they even realize that they're just all kissing each other, getting everybody's saliva in their mouth?
I feel like anybody that's into biology is this is the grossest thing I've ever seen because of the amount of DNA that's being passed.
It was a lot. It was over the top. We only watched this season because it's been popping off. Everybody's been talking about it. And even online, right? How this has been the best season of Love Island USA so far. So I'm okay, let's see what this is all about. And then I saw that happening in the first episode. And I was like, okay. And number one, I understand why people are all into it. Because it just really should be called Makeout Island. Because I don't think there's a whole lot of love in this show. I mean, at least some of these other shows, there's an introductory period where people are kind of getting to know each other before it maybe gets a little crazy, but they just full on threw these kids into chaos.
It's hey, what's your biggest fear in a relationship? Cue full out makeout session with 20 people.
It's 100%. There's a huge difference between chemistry, physical attraction, and this season was giving shallow end of the pool. What was your initial thought when you first watched the show?
I had some interns that were obsessed with Love Island. They would always talk about it. And I'd never sat down to watch it. I had no interest. And then we decided to do this episode. So sitting down and watching it and then remembering all the conversations that they had about it, I was like, got it.
Would you have gone on a show like this? I mean, they're all 20s.
It's not for me. I don't think I ever had that phase. I definitely think I would never have gone on that show if I had seen what the season entailed. The cluster makeout sessions and stuff, that's not for me. But I don't shame anyone or I don't have any negative feelings about people that do go on that stuff. It's people giving themselves the permission to explore. So it's almost like your 20s condensed. All the years of your 20s condensed into 2 months.
Because they got a free pass to just act wild and crazy. Because it's on TV and that's what's being asked of them.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
That season got 18.4 billion minutes of views. It's Peacock's most watched original season ever. 18.4 billion minutes, over 54 million social media interactions. And their TikTok grew up to 232%.
Really?
That's why I was what's the deal? Why is this such a big deal? Why did it blow up? Because they were saying a lot during the show, oh, this is new or for the first time ever. It was also the first Latino couple to win Love Island USA in all of the seasons so far.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
It's interesting because it's a quote unquote love dating show. They're trying to find love. And I think it's defined in all the wrong ways for this show. But it really is also a competition, right? Mm-hmm. This is a game show. Yeah. It had very much game show attributes to it.
Yes. And it does have a prize at the end too. It's a cash prize. When I was thinking about it, I started really trying to challenge myself. Okay, why would 20-year-olds love this? There's a lot of social implications. It's very freeing to them probably to see stuff like this because I was reading some statistics about like the younger generations are really conservative compared to the older generations. And so this is kind of like a shock and awe for them. And then the other element that blew my mind was this concept that it does give them the opportunity to explore beyond socially structured or acceptable norms and outside of their own culture in a way that is hyper explorative, right? They're like Dora exploring the shit out of them because it's normalized on the show. That's like the concept going into it. They all have this like understanding, like we're going into this, we're being open-minded and we're just trying new things. And so they created such a strong bond, the original villa. And I think it was because they had created a community within themselves that allowed themselves to explore without being demonized or shunned.
That's really fascinating. That like younger generations are more conservative.
Yeah, so in hookup culture, Gen Z is having less frequent sex, averaging 3 times per month, lower than millennials, and showing less participation in one-night stands overall, reporting 23% are open to casual hookups, while 62% say they and their peers typically avoid them. Though nearly 48% of Gen Z teens consider casual sex, about 65 say sex should occur when in committed relationships, with roughly 40% reporting low or no interest in sex at all.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me in some ways because of technology and the culture that drives, where we've talked about before, like people aren't spending time together the way that they used to. They're not forming those connections.
And 52 to 63% are open to non-traditional arrangements. So that is where they are more explorative. Most lean toward monogamy and emotional alignment rather than casual or polyamorous setups, but they are more open to non-traditional arrangements.
I mean, it was shock and awe for me. Also, the language. It's definitely geared toward younger generations. I will say that. It's definitely geared toward baby millennials and Gen Zers, right? Because the language they were using, I was like, I need a social language dictionary. They all were using similar slang terms and different things that I was like, I felt very educated by the end of this series. Some of the things that they would say to describe things like the cap.
No cap.
No cap, stand on your business. The cap. Crashing out. I feel like in my generation, we used crashing. Like, I'm going to crash out, but it meant something different.
I'm going to go to sleep.
Yeah, like I'm spent. When I first started watching it, I think I really felt like, one, it was very performative. I felt like majority, if not all of them, were there because they want screen time and they're really interested in like making a name for themselves or seeing what other opportunities can come from being on a show like this, which does happen for a lot of these folks. Their host, Ariana, she's from Vanderpump Rules. She's an OG reality TV girl.
Some people could see this as an opportunity for
to advance their career or try to make it or get other job opportunities. Because I do think with the younger generations, you know, social media or reality TV is an avenue that they see as a very viable opportunity.
How do you feel about the pressure that was applied for people who needed to appear bonded in order for them to get more time on screen? I will say, as much as I love Nick, I really felt that with him because I genuinely was like, oh, I like him as like a person. Like he has a cool little vibe to him. He's like, seems really down to earth. He did seem to really want to explore everything all the time.
And he was cute, attractive for a youngin'. He kind of reminded me of like a young James Marsden.
He very much had that vibe.
Yeah, I think he was like a model too or something.
No, Nick was a nurse.
Oh yeah, Nick is a nurse, but he's, you know what's weird is later in the season, he talks about modeling.
I'm sure he probably did model at some point. That's why he had that like very charismatic, caring, nurturing kind of tendency, I feel like, because of his profession.
But Amaya was also a nurse.
Amaya, she felt like a nurse.
We'll talk about her in a minute because I actually really liked Amaya. But
I do too.
We'll talk about the controversy.
I felt that with Nick. I did feel that definitely with Austin. again, with the men, I feel like they were genuinely trying to explore, but they also wanted to get as far as possible. There was two motives there, and like it was pretty clear. And I couldn't really pick up too much outside of Hutta for the women that was the case. Maybe Iris.
That they were more focused on playing the game than just finding quote unquote love or a connection.
Yeah, actually, I think Iris kind of too, because she had such a strong connection with TJ. And then she kind of was like, yeah, I could explore Pepe, but it was pretty clear she was like, I don't really like him. There's signs that we do physiologically when we don't necessarily like someone or we're not really attracted to them. And one of them is the pursing of the lips.
But okay, I'm gonna say something really controversial. She had lip fillers, so she can't stop pursing her lips. Like they're permanently like she could barely move her face around.
No, don't be mean.
It wasn't just her. A lot of other girls had the same thing. Kiara got let go. She also had Botox, lip filler.
For sure?
Yeah. It was a post that she was posting about getting injections that got her kicked off the show. The one from Utah.
She had
it reminded me of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives because they're all young too. Boatload of plastic surgery and like fillers and injections. It breaks my heart because listen, your youth is the time to not do that. That's the time for you to enjoy the beauty that you naturally have. And then when you get old like me, you start exploring other options. If you do it too soon, you're going to screw yourself over. You're going to look older faster. That's a generational thing too, because these younger generations are really big on doing it like immediately.
I have a theory too.
Even the boys, because I question TJ.
Oh, did he have Botox?
He was from Florida. He looked like he had something work done on his face.
He just looked like he had no emotion to me. For real. They were like, oh, he looks like Leonardo DiCaprio. And I was like, Leonardo DiCaprio also looks like he has no emotion. He also dates like 12-year-olds all the time, and he's like a 57-year-old man. Anyway, back to the point. No hate, no shade, just love. I'm going to say that for now when I say controversial things. The intimacy as currency in game format was kind of crazy too.
Yeah. I think that's what threw me off, because I think it made me feel confused of what kind of show am I watching? What am I paying attention to? They know it's a game, so they're all going to play each other to try to get ahead. Mm-hmm. And then what stood out to me more was not so much the relationship connections, but the friendship connections that they were making. And I wonder if that was just a way for them to kind of protect themselves so that they could connect with people, but also still play the game. You know what I mean? It also felt like, okay, like some diabolical producers, because they do some diabolical shit to them in the show, were like, hey, let's just try everything. Because every time they would meet up for a challenge or something, it was always a different approach to it.
Yeah.
And the way they were eliminating them was different. And then they started having them eliminate each other, and that was cold. I was like, holy cow.
I'm going to say something that's kind of controversial, but I believe this is that whoever is the showrunner or producers were big fans of Squid Game.
Oh, is that the vibe it gave you? I've never seen Squid Game.
Yes, that's the vibe it gives me. But Squid Game ends with murder. No one got killed on Love Island.
Yeah.
But it felt like that, where they make them kind of question themselves, turn against each other. Mm-hmm. They're basically baiting and creating a perfect setting for tension and trouble. And I will give credit where credit's due. This cast definitely did a good job of mitigating that, because they could have been way more reactive. Mm-hmm. And really the only times that we saw some significant reactions was between, Huda and that situation with Jeremiah, and then Olandria and Taylor. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, most of any kind of negative tension was not broadcasted in the editing.
Yeah.
For the most part, they did really well as a cast navigating the kind of intentional turmoil.
You're trying to walk the line between like being yourself, but like also performing to be likable, have a certain kind of experience here or whatnot. By the second week, you gotta be exhausted. They also had them on a schedule. So they'd wake them up at a certain time, send them to sleep at a certain time. Like this was such a controlled environment that was very experimental. And that does something to your psyche.
I feel like once they're out of there, they're probably watching it back like an actor would watch a movie. Not even that we're acting, but like it would be a similar kind of experience because, like you said, it was very controlled and intentional environment that they put them in. And you really don't know how you're going to react to that until you're in it. And so it's likely that the people that we saw on screen are very specific versions of these people, probably a little bit more likable. They came off fairly likable.
When they first started, who do you think were drawn to each other because they had genuine vibes?
Shelly seemed to have really genuine intentions for Ace. Huda actually seemed to have genuine intentions for Jeremiah. They were just both not a good fit.
It was very toxic. He was love bombing her hard.
Yeah.
And I do think he was playing the game.
It was interesting because I don't think he knows he's a manipulator. I think he genuinely thought he was being genuine. But then once he recoupled, I was like, oh, okay, so this is your MO. Even like when he was explaining, when they were sharing their numbers, it became clear like, oh, you've told a lot of people that you love them.
It was a red flag for the boys. I was surprised with that.
I think Alandria was probably one of the more genuine people on the show.
She probably was the most, say, genuine. I would also say Ace was pretty much himself the entire time. Ace is a big softie, and he was trying to be too cool and too hard in the beginning, but he was pretty consistent. Like everything that he said was consistent. He didn't really change what his thoughts were or his approach to things. So he didn't feel like manipulative. Olandria was definitely being herself, but she was very guarded.
Oh, dude. When she went off, I was like, this girl has been played.
Yeah. And she was really hurt.
Because she's such a genuine person, you know that was like deep pain that came out.
Dude, for sure. Because you never know. Like, you're going to get triggered. You can get triggered by something in the present. And then all the feelings from the past come with that, especially if it hasn't been dealt with, you know? I also wonder, like, did you feel like the show was overproduced? Because in some parts I felt like how much of this is the producers planting seeds, manipulating the engagement versus how much of it is actually just organically happening and it is what they're capturing on the cameras?
It's a combination. To some degree, there was obviously production that went behind it. For the challenges, hyper produced.
Like they told them, make out hard with everybody. Borderline stripper.
Just to get those camera angles, you have to be very instructional with people. And there's multiple cameras, the lighting. So that was super hyper produced. When you go to the villa stuff, maybe they were pulling people aside and letting them know certain things, but
prompting them to go talk with somebody.
Yeah. I think editing goes a really long way. Like you can change an entire narrative with editing.
Yeah. I felt a lot of the time they were just like laying around all day. And then also, why was nobody ever in the swimming pool? Like rarely was anybody ever in the swimming pool. It was like they jumped in because of some celebration or being goofy, but it was like 1,000 degrees, I'm certain. And they're just lounging around. It's hot and uncomfortable and they're forced to be outside all day.
Yeah. There's a funny satire show where this comedian, he does a Love Island skit. And he gets kicked off the island because he won't stop using the zip line to jump into the swimming pool. And she's like, I don't even think you're here to find love. I think you're here just to use a zip line. And this shows multiple times as he zip lines into the pool. It's the funniest shit ever.
Like behind people and stuff.
I definitely think it was a lot of heavy editing. I also think they didn't want them in the pool because, you know, people don't look as camera ready. That's where maybe production kind of stepped in.
Which would suck. Like, you're in Fiji. It's hot as hell. All right, let's talk about the bromance. This is when I started to realize that the friendship dynamic became a very big highlight in this season. And that might also be why people were really drawn to it. Because we've talked about this before, right? The loneliness epidemic, I should say, is real. You don't often get to see people actually trying to bond with each other and create friendships, because that became like another layer that almost became more interesting than the romance parts.
Yeah.
But the bromances were so interesting, especially for the first group. And you can see how much they became bonded, both the girls and the boys, as they brought new people in later. There was the one episode where they thought Nick was getting kicked off. And they started bawling. And one thing that my partner said to me who was watching it with me was it is so hard for men to make friends, even when they're at that age, even in their 20s, because they're not in high school anymore, where you have more access to people to try to maintain friendships. Once you're out of that, it is harder to make friends. And for men, it's even harder than for women because we'll seek out like connections with people.
Yeah.
Where men aren't really taught how to do that and prioritize that. So they actually got along well. And they just had this opportunity to like really bond with each other. And the fact that they were crying, they were like bawling. I think Ace at one point was like, we're talking about him like he's dead. What about the girls? Girl code or mean girls?
It was girl code at first. And at some point, Shelly became pretty selfish.
Right? And
yeah.
I was shocked. I was disappointed.
Shelly, I think I was kind of surprised because I was like, how are you going to play that card on Huda when you are the one that is keeping the door open after telling this man that you wanted to become closed off with him until they gave you another option? There was a double standard there.
And she became a little territorial with Ace. So that when Huda was playing the game, as they've been asked to play, that she turned into a mean girl on her. And Sierra was the other one too. I did not like that. The way that Sierra also became like Huda had her own issues, right? She was not an angel by any means. Seeing how her personality played out, it was not intentional. Like she didn't do it to like hurt her feelings. She was like, okay, I'm just gonna go all in. And then it backfired. And then the original girls started to turn on her. They were creating these like unspoken rules and boundaries and expectations
of each other
that were contradictory to the point of them being on the show to begin with.
And Huda was technically single and that other guy was single. Shelly made it very clear that she wanted him to chase her and earn her. And, you know, when you show somebody interest, it needs to be a two-way street.
She wasn't even talking to the other guy, and she told Ace that she was. It very much, in the early episodes, felt like, oh, okay, cool. They're bonding, the girl code, right? Like, they're really taking care of each other, looking out for each other, being open with each other.
Right.
And then it flipped real quick and became, like, mean girls. And I noticed it before because when they started bringing in new bombshells, they wouldn't like pull them into the inner circle. And then once Casa Amor happened, if you notice in the filming, you'll see the Casa Amor girls were separate than the original Villa girls. They were not like open to adding anybody else into their group. That like solidified their little mean girl core. And it also kind of showcased Shelly as the ringleader.
Well, that did a disservice to her character, and that's why America voted the way they did.
Because it was shocking because that was not how she was carrying herself the entire time.
No.
And then it created, like, I was talking with other people about it, and they were like, yeah, it made me feel like, oh, so you've been playing this whole time. You are not showing us who you really are, but you're pretending to be really authentic. Whether that was her intention or not, that's the shift that happened. Because she was very much like, well, now you're not part of our group, so we're just not vibing now, you know? Like, that's not the kind of friend I want. But girl, you were not being a good friend either. You were putting your stuff on her and making it about her to take the heat off of you and what you were doing that your own coupled up person was telling you. Like, hey, you doubled back on this guy. You kissed him, went forward, came back, and did it again.
I think that was ruder than Huda lap dancing on him or whatever.
Yeah, she did like a full-on striptease.
She did it to make Chris jealous. But outside of that, there's nothing. And Ace is 100% for Shelly.
As women, we're very intentional.
And yes, we're smart.
Yeah, we're smart as hell, and we're also cruel as hell. I also feel like she got real jealous that he was not pursuing her in the villa and he was so focused on Huda. And I think that's even more so why Huda became a target. Then her using this idea like, oh, well, you broke girl code to just like, take it out on her.
For sure. Because one of the things that I loved about Chris's character in this whole thing is that he very much knows who he is to the degree where he was like, nah. He would just be like, Shelly was being wishy-washy. He was like, I ain't gonna do that. Let's focus on Huda. And then Huda started showing all, you know, her imperfections. And then he was like, hang on a second. Huda, the only reason why it wasn't even her imperfection, she very much is just trying to figure out who she is still. And it's very clear that she's going through that part of her life.
Well, they all are. They're all babies. I mean, the basketball player was like 28, 29, so he was one of the
he was older,
more mature, older ones.
But also, Huda has the different dynamic of being a single mother trying to find a partner and also explore her 20s. Your 20s are for exploration, whether it is that you are actually going into a cave or you're kissing 20 people. Choose your own adventure, design it. You could do both, but the point is that that's what it is, and that's what the show really showcases. I think with Huda, her dynamic with Chris that I didn't favor was that she hid him. And I get the reasoning in her head as to why she might have done that because of how things went with Jeremiah love bombing her and how that played out for her, you know, becoming like the least favorites, voted off multiple times.
She didn't want people to judge her for it.
But I think that really messed up her opportunity to get really close to someone who was genuine, which is that Chris fella, who didn't care that she was a parent. Straight out the gate, didn't gasp like Jeremiah did. Oh, that was such a cringy moment.
Do you think the other girls were judging her for that? Without, like, even though they didn't say it and they said they were like okay and supportive of her, but do you think that was one of the things? Because I feel like they always kind of treated her a little bit on the outs.
Oh yeah,
because even when they brought in new girls, Huda was one of the ones who was always out there talking to all the new people, trying to like make connections with them too, and the like new girls.
Even as a young parent, you kind of got to figure out your shit before a lot of other people because you're raising a kid. And so Huda has a little bit more of like a self-developed image. The only thing that really sabotaged her wasn't really, I mean, outside of her personal communication issues with calling everybody a bitch. The thing that I saw that sabotaged her the most was her wanting to be liked. She wanted to be included so bad, you know, by the wrong people. And Alondra was the only one that really sat down with Huda and had like a real conversation with her.
And apologized.
But the other two, Shelly and Sierra, they were a little problematic in that zone and very much acting like they were older than they are. So it was kind of interesting to see play out. At the end of the day, we all make mistakes and we all have those moments. These moments happen to many people throughout the course of your life. And I hope they look back and watch that and they found opportunities to develop themselves, because that really was a lot to see as a woman.
But because you know what? Yeah. This society is all about perpetuating drama between women.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks, but people love to see women hating on women. And we as women fall into the trap over and over and over again. And that's what we kind of saw play out there, is like, you guys were baited because they did that, like sharing anonymous thoughts about each other, whatever. So they were all emotional, all heightened, and then they started just digging in on each other. Instead of like addressing the real issues in the space, they started hating on each other, which is like the thing that we're fighting so hard to move away from. So you can't use language like girl code, but you were also being rude and disrespectful to your girl. I think there were underlying judgments about her being a mom and being there on this show. Subtle, unspoken, but it impacted the way that they viewed and engaged with her because they were judging her for it.
Not all women, but there are some people, and I'm going to say this and women are going to know, oh, yep, I'm no person like that. They move in a way where they're so certain of themselves. It's almost rigid. There's no room for flexibility there. We're human, and you got to be somewhat malleable. Be open to have a little bit of grace with other people and to know that you're not perfect and you might make, you know, bad judgments or snide comments or whatever. And there's like room for development and growth still.
Yeah, but that rigidity is just, it's insecurities being masked as I know myself. They're all in their early 20s.
They're learning.
That I also found fascinating, how they were trying to portray themselves as so mature and grown up.
But I'm
like, you're 22 years old. What are you even talking about right now?
Majority of 20-year-olds think like this. You've barely stepped into adulthood and you won't really figure it out until you're maybe in your mid 30s, maybe early 40s if you're lucky.
Yeah, there was one scene where Sierra, this was right before she got kicked off, and I don't remember who she was talking to. I think it was Amaya. It was one of the times Amaya was crying, and she was like giving her a whole speech about like, you just need to stand in your worth and you just need to know who you are, you know, trying to give her this hype up speech. But she came at it like she was so mature and so wise. And Amaya's face too was like, yeah, I know, but that's like not why I'm hurt. You know what I mean? My feelings were hurt and people aren't accepting me for who I am. People want me to be somebody different. And then I think it was not that long after that she got kicked off the show.
Did she get kicked off?
She got kicked off. So let's talk about it. 2 people got kicked off the show.
I knew the first
Cubana
Latina
from
girl.
the beginning.
Yeah.
She got kicked off, and I think it's because she was on a podcast and she said racial slurs.
Oh, gee.
And the show actually has it in their contract that that is not allowed. So she got kicked off. And then later in the show, they barely even talk about it. Sierra got kicked off, which she was also Latina. I did not know that because she posted something on social media about her getting Botox and fillers. And she used a racial slur against Asian people in her post. And it resurfaced and started circulating. And from one day to the next, she was gone.
Was it an old post or a new post?
It wasn't that old.
Oh.
Yeah, it was not that old. I found on Reddit, somebody posted a picture of the post.
Okay.
So you could see what it was. And then she got kicked off. So this is like some of the real life stuff that the show very quietly avoided and didn't really talk about, but it was like online and like the news and people who were following it, both for discriminatory posts. But they were removed with like zero on-air accountability, no discussion, just gone.
Now that you've said that, that's very problematic. And they probably should have some kind of media accountability behind it. For the first girl, that's surprising because we didn't see her at all. Like,
Yeah.
she was off the show so quick. But for Sierra, she painted herself in a certain light. Clearly, there's room for growth there. I definitely think that being racist or discriminatory against other people because of the cultural differences is very ignorant. And you definitely should maybe educate yourself a little bit more and be open.
It's also like comes from a place of immaturity and ignorance. But it's interesting because like, those were 2 things that happened that were related, but not really discussed or pointed out on the show. Like the narrator just briefly said, oh, so-and-so has left the villa. And then they moved on.
Because they used the term left the villa.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't kicked off the villa.
But they were kicked off, which is different. So that was one piece. But in the same like umbrella of thinking about like diversity and culture, things came up with Amaya, right? That like were shown, but not like fully shown or explored on the show. And there's probably footage of it that they just edited out.
Likely, yeah.
But with Amaya's personality being big and loud, I liked her. I was like, I get her. And then as it played out, then it became very apparent of like the lack of cultural understanding that then people were labeling her something that she wasn't because they didn't get it. Like you were just saying, like the diversity piece is so important. The cultural piece is so important. And if you're going to go on a show that is going to embrace diversity in the casting and engagement, then you got to be more open-minded and aware. They haven't had those experiences.
As Puerto Rican women, we get it. Loud, proud, beautiful, funny, emotional women. That's our norm.
Touchy-feely, huggers. I mean, she's Caribbean. Half of our background is Caribbean, right? And like, that's just the culture. The culture is loud, engaged, funny, use this certain language, like we touch each other's shoulders. Like we're not creepy, but we're like,
yeah,
we are like close people.
That's what intimacy looks like for that culture.
And it's like everything is like con cariño. Like we do it with care and affection
and love.
Not like, oh my God, I want to marry you, love, but like, oh, I see you and I appreciate you kind of affection.
At times, and like, and this is for everybody, she was edited to seem like she was annoying at times. And that, might have been done intentionally to create a narrative there just to keep like the interest of the viewer. I would see when she would be getting ready, her demeanor was normal.
She was calm.
No matter what culture you come from, when you're put in spaces that you're trying to interact with someone and you don't necessarily vibe with them, the best parts of you ain't gonna come out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think like her being with Austin, they made the decision, both of them, to be in the game because Amaya tried to put her genuine foot forward. She was like trying to make a connection, but Austin was very resistant. And like the only reason he was like leaning into it, or from the way that they portrayed it was that he was getting action from Amaya, you know, and Amaya was genuinely like, I want somebody to like me and I want someone to hug me, like show me interest, you know. And then when she was like, wait, you don't like me as a person, that really hurts my feelings.
I think it was a lot of sexism too. I think the cultural piece, but I do think that the men really jumped on this. Oh, you're too clingy. You're too overbearing. It's too much. You need to tone yourself down. And that's where the cultural piece comes in. Like she said, if I'm not your cup of tea, don't drink it. Don't pretend that you're interested in me and don't pretend that you want to hang out with me and then turn around and tell me I'm too much, knowing very well that I just am who I am. I was disappointed in all of them for not standing up for her. Austin, Ace, they all like shit on her so hard in that circle.
Yeah, there was the tonality of sexism there. There was also a tonality of like cultural misalignment. Maybe they just genuinely never dealt with like a Latina woman.
Yeah, I noticed that when Brian, the one that she ended up winning the whole show with, when he stood up for her, and he was like, no, wait a minute, like, you guys are getting this wrong. Like, this is our culture. You're forgetting that, like, she's a Latina. This is part of who she is. Like, that's normal to us. I saw in Ace's face, it registered, and he had a moment of, like, oh, shit.
That's why I liked Ace.
But also the girls, like, going back to the girl code, like, they didn't stand up for her, and that bothered me. At the time of the circle, Sierra, you're a Latina.
Yeah.
Why are you letting everybody hate on her?
But also Sierra, she's a very Americanized Latina. From what I can see, is like she may not also agree with it because she may not also do those things. That's why I feel like you have to have someone like Brian who's like, wait a minute, she's just like the people that I know and I love, you know. She's not trying to freaking marry.
She's not trying to be disrespectful.
And like,
if you feel like it's a lot for you, then you just have to communicate that to her.
But this is the part that's like you are exploring people of different cultures in the likes that you probably never have on camera. Yeah. It's like if you're doing it in private and you can have takeaways and meaningful moments of learning outside of a camera, but you're doing it in front of a camera, they're capturing it all.
What bothers me too is in this idea of like shows like this, like where it's like romance and dating, it's like a fetish for Latina women. They're sexy and they're all this and that until they open their mouth. And then now all of a sudden, it's this like huge judgment on them. They want to romanticize it. They're perpetuating those stereotypes. And had Brian not said anything, it would have just went unchecked. Nobody in that circle would have addressed the fact that, hey, maybe she's not the problem. Maybe y'all the problem because you're not being open to understand the differences between each of you.
If they're ignorant to it, they wouldn't know.
No, listen, Ace is from LA.
I've dealt with a lot of people from LA that come from different cultures and that are very ignorant of different cultures than their own or what they're like normally exposed to. So if he's not exposed to Caribbean women and he doesn't understand how they move, it can make him uncomfortable. Ace particularly has real specific standards, the way that he moved throughout the show, even with Shelly. Like, he was like very guarded, right?
Well, it's because he's a big softie.
But because of the way he moved, and she was so like, babe, and he's like, no, this is too much. And he was like, I'm gonna set a boundary, like super quick, you know. The way he set the boundary was real ugly too.
Machismo side of it, the deeply rooted in patriarchy approach to things, right? That's the machismo side of like, well, I'm going to set a boundary because I'm the man and I don't want you as the woman to be too much.
But I also think that it came from a place like they didn't know any better. And it took someone like Brian to say, hey, wait, hang on a second. Let me add a perspective here that changes and gives you nuance. And for the most part, a lot of them changed the way they worked with her after that. After Brian finally said, you know, wait a minute, you guys have blinders on here. You're not seeing X, Y, and Z. And then they were like, oh, you're right. Now, all of a sudden, the girls were a little bit more inclusive of Amaya.
Yeah, because the cultural dynamics, that's where all the details and the nuance lives. And that's where the depth lives, too. And for a show like this, where it's really superficial, surface level, with people that were trying to get deep and create like deep connection, deep friendships and whatnot, they were really missing the mark in a lot of ways, which is really unfortunate that played out. But I'm glad that they addressed it in the show and that Brian said something and, you know, defended her, even if it was I felt like he was being genuine about it because later he had said something about like she reminded him of his family, of his own mom, and he didn't like that, the way that they were digging in on her.
It seemed very genuine because number one, she's gorgeous. She looks like a freaking Disney character.
Mhm.
And they came from similar backgrounds. So there was a lot of connection there. How would you rate this show 10 out of 10?
5. If
Yeah.
there's nothing else on TV, I'll watch it. But I'm not going to go out of my way to continue because the show itself was too much. It was too confusing. I was too disgusted by all of the spit swapping. There is a tasteful amount, and this one just pushed it too far. It was just like, really? This is so unnecessary. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't cute anymore. It was just kind of gross. There's an element there. Like, you kind of find the balance. You knew every time they were going to do a challenge, that's all it was going to be, was a makeout session.
What's interesting about this show is there was a sense of over-sexualized engagement.
Which, like you said at the beginning, right? Like, that's not what love is about. So they need to change the title because it's not Love Island.
That's what they should call it, Exploration Island.
If you like to explore swapping spit with 20 different people,
please tell me that you guys have a freaking Listerine person. A dedicated Listerine person.
It took 10 years of watching it, so I don't know how long they recorded it.
I started the show when I was 27.
I was 32 when I started. I'm now 46. What does that tell you? Come on.
I'm gonna be real. I didn't really like this show.
I didn't love it.
I think people love it because it gives them an outlet for whatever they might be missing in their personal lives in terms of like what they're comfortable exploring for themselves and things. But for me, it was like, I felt so bad for the people in the show. I was like, this is not normal. Yeah. And I didn't like how many bugs were on the show.
I mean, there were some parts that were like interesting. I will say that, you know, or when they started stirring up stuff, it was like, oh, okay, we're going to see some people react. And when you're reacting, there are parts of you that you are not showing that start to come out.
Their true colors.
I don't disagree with their thoughts on Jeremiah and like voting him out. I think he should have been voted out a long time ago. I was surprised that like Huda stayed and had more opportunities. I mean, yeah, girls trying to figure herself out. I was just like, isn't that what they're supposed to be here to do? Isn't this the point of the show?
To figure it out.
What I found fascinating was the tribe mentality that was playing out. You know, either in or you're out. And we have to accept you and you have to follow these rules. Who'd you like least?
The way that they were represented on the show, who I liked least would be Austin.
Really showing too much of who he really was.
Something about him, I couldn't figure it out. I just didn't like him.
He was a narc. He wasn't even 27. He was like 43 with his like
700 body count.
Something insane. Barney Stinson style.
He was definitely in it for the money. That's what I felt. I felt like he's in it for the money. He was intentional because he always flirted with the host. When she would come in, he would always make a little comment. And I was like, you're gross.
Well, when you're 43, yeah, that makes sense.
I'm a pool boy. Like, you're a pool man.
You're a male escort on Craigslist. That's how he got that number. Facebook Marketplace.
How about you?
The person I liked the least was Jeremiah.
I knew you were going to say that.
He just gave me disingenuine, dishonest vibes. I thought somebody like that can be very predatorial. So, of course, he's going to go for the one that is the most insecure, who is like showing her emotions on her sleeve because she can be manipulated more easily and controlled more easily. And Goldmine, she's a mom. In another touch point that I can control and manipulate. He just felt very predatorial to me, and I did not like that.
I wasn't buying anything he was selling. You know?
I also didn't like Sierra on the girl side. I didn't think she was genuine either. I do think she liked Nick, and she was really like trying to figure that out because I think her intention was to come on here and play a role for visibility. And there's a part where you can see when they're in like Casa Amor where she's like upset and she's like struggling a little bit and she's like mad at herself for it. Uh-huh. They do think she actually started to like him. Yeah. And now she was like torn between, am I still playing the role, or should I just kind of try to be myself now? But when she started doing the mean girl stuff with Shelly, I was like, yep, called it. Nope. What about Taylor? Hot takes on Taylor. This is where the double standard comes in again. She was totally okay with keeping Taylor on the sideline while she was exploring Jalen. And Taylor was just there watching.
I forgot about Jalen. He was a blip in my mind.
And then when Taylor actually had interest in the other person, and I can see why he picked her, because I think he felt, one, the connection, two, that she was more into him.
I liked Taylor and I liked Clark. She was consistent the whole time. What you got was what you got. You know, like if she was my coworker, I'd love to hang out with her at work.
Yeah, she was pretty chill.
What I saw with Taylor and Clark was that Taylor was so giddy about Clark from the get. He had those butterflies with Clark, you know, that he did not have with Alondra. So for me to be like, as a onlooker, like, yeah, but you should be with her because she's better as a person. That's my own personal opinion. I would never want somebody to do that to me, because it's about how you feel when you're making a decision about who you want to end up with. So, you know, I was pretty disappointed that America voted them off.
This is the name of the game. He's there to try to find a connection. And if he realized right away that, like, actually, this is a stronger connection for me, and so he went for it, and then he got hate for it.
I think the part that he got hate for was that he still kept the option open with Delandria, but only because he didn't want to hurt her feelings.
Because I do think he liked her. I think he respected her and he didn't want to hurt her. And he didn't want to be the bad guy.
The way he kissed her, I was like, he doesn't like her that much. He's trying to. He likes her as a person, but he doesn't have that physical connection. And remember what we talked about, love is not blind.
It is not blind.
And there has to be some kind of physical chemistry. And he did have that with the other girl. Especially, and kept Austin on. What the? Yeah. You kept Austin over them.
I don't know how Austin made it through.
Like, honestly, like if they would have cut and he would have just been cleaning the pool for most of the season, I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense.
That would have been really funny, actually.
Missed opportunity, producers. You want to hire us, by the way?
What about the commentary guy?
I loved him. He was my favorite part of the show. So here's my take. You don't need that many After Sun episodes. Maybe just one After Sun episode in the center, in the middle, catch everybody up, move on.
Tone down the makeout sessions.
Just make it more classy.
Just tone it down a little bit.
Just watching a Carl's Jr. ad, like where the girls were like rubbing the burgers and stuff. And they're like shooting water hoses at them. That's what it felt like during all those makeout sessions. When they would do the slow-mos, please don't.
What happened to like Mystery? Had a full-on sex room in there.
Yeah, the hideaway.
Which they didn't showcase until the end.
The two couples that went in there with the bombshells.
Oh, yeah.
They just like spanked each other and fell asleep.
I'm so curious how many people actually go on like Love Island or other relatable shows and really think that they're going to find love.
I can see it more for Love is Blind. And that's why they're open to higher age ranges. Because I think when you go on it, you have this doubt, but you're also like, maybe I can find them here. I think for Love Island, if you're going in it because you really want to be open to the idea of maybe finding your soulmate there,
that's like thinking you're going to find your dreamboat up in the club.
He's going to be grinding on another girl from a distance. We're going to make eye contact.
Exactly.
He's going to walk over and be like, you know what? I saw you and I was like, you're my boo.
It's very reminiscent of club culture.
Oh, that's an interesting take, actually. Mm-hmm. You saying it's very reminiscent of club culture. These shows are
usually looking for like a hookup or someone maybe you could go out with. You weren't really looking for like, oh, I'm going to find my true love.
Club culture, like for me, I would be like, I just want to go dance and then maybe just have somebody that takes me out on dates.
Some sort of just connection. Interest.
Someone that shows you like interest.
I'm going to get dressed up in my hoiest clothes and go find my future husband. I mean, some people thought like that, but not for the majority. It was like, we're just going to go have a good time and meet people. Hopefully we meet some cool people that maybe want to hang out with again.
Oh, that's so interesting that you're saying this, because now I'm like, I see what the producers did. They picked who they would consider the hottest people in the club. They put them in a villa.
If you're in this unusual environment, the hottest people in the club crammed all together.
Yeah.
to see what happens.
So let's just call it what it is. It's a fun little social experiment where they are trying their best to make everyone have anxiety.
Love Island might look like just another dating show, but it's also a low-key sociology experiment, maybe with some better outfits.
From performative kissing to friendship politics, this season reminded us that being seen, supported, and respected matters more than a spark or a kiss count.
So next time someone tries to rush your heart or ice you out in the name of loyalty, ask yourself, is this real or is this just reality TV in disguise?
Thanks for tuning in. Keep your heart open and your red flag radar sharp. And remember, some of y'all are moving like you're in a villa and it's showing.
You know who you are.
See you
See you
next
next time.
time.
Bye.
Bye.